Okay. Hi, everybody. Today we're continuing the conversation on our Summer Design Challenge. And I've been receiving all sorts of emails from you, and I know that a lot of you are working very hard. Just want to remind you that all designs are due in at 11:59 or by 11:59 p.m. on August 31st, and we'll be making the decisions on the three prize winners on Labor Day. So as we continue the conversation, we're going to talk about fiber today and a wonderful, wonderful fiber, which is silk. Uh, for all my students and everyone who's read my knitwear design workshop book, you know that I always say that the fabric that you select, which means the yarn, is the lifeblood of your garment. So for my coquille capelet, that happens to be the basis for this whole summer design contest, you're probably wondering why I selected a silk yarn. We have Monsi Shaw here with us today, and she's going to talk a little bit about, she's the daughter of the owner of the company that makes the yarn that we actually, or provides the yarn that I use for my capelet. So she's going to tell us a little bit about her background and about the company's background, and you'll get a better understanding as to why I selected that particular yarn for the capelet. So when we think of the evolving journey of the silk moth, right, we're looking at silk or of the butterfly, the word transformational usually comes to mind. And today we're going to look at a company, it's Monsi's company, whose mission is to represent transformation on two levels. The company's name means butterfly, which is Mariposa, and they specialize in the highest quality of silk yarn. And each of their yarns has the name of a butterfly. So their yarn offerings are, as you look at this and you'll listen to this, very diverse, with a variety that's rarely seen in one place, a variety of silks. So Monsi, I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about the background. A lot of people may not know just how deep your background and your family's background and history goes with the silk yarn product. It's just the product of silk, whether it's threads to weave a fabric or the yarns that you are offering. So welcome, Monsi.
Hi, thanks for having us here.
So today, just tell us a little bit about that. If we can advance the slides, we'd like to take a look at your company and the background of the family's company that was established in 1878. And also, just to tell you that today happens to be one of the events that your family's company survived through, and that is it's Independence Day. It's the 75th anniversary of Independence Day from British rule, or the Raj period in India. So it's appropriate that we're doing this today. So tell us a little bit about the company. Pronounce it. Those of you who are in India, it's the gold standard for saris, so you'll more than likely know the name. But Monty, tell me a little bit about that.
So, my great grandfather times four, his name is Hathibai, and his son is Gagolbai. And so, my great grandfather, great grandfather, had traveled to Pune with seven saris on his back that he was going to sell to the people there. And that's how the business initially started. We're currently on the fourth generation of family members running our sari shop in India. We have survived two world wars. We've survived plagues. We've survived COVID, India gaining its independence from Great Britain. And we're still there today.
Wow. So you talked a little bit about it at one point about silk and its properties and all the things that surround this particular product. Tell me a little bit about that.
Silk has the propensity to keep you warm or cool depending on the weather. It's one of the strongest natural fibers. Different silkworms will make different types of silk. And when it comes to knitting, we use four different types of silkworms to procure the silk.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move into the conversation. But if we can advance the slide and just take a look at some of the historical saris that your family's yarn shop made, and the types of saris, and talk a little bit about what a sari means to a woman who's wearing it and what it represents.
So, culturally speaking, women always wear saris. These are three different versions of how saris are worn. India has 28 or 29 states, and depending on where you come from, that is how you tie your sari. So when we see a woman in a sari, we could tell where she's from. Depending on how the sari is woven, we can also see where the sari came from. So usually it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half to weave one sari. So what we specialize in is one of a kind pieces or saris that if you buy one, nobody else will have that. They're
Wow,
all one of a kind pieces.
it's amazing. So Quinn, if we advance the slide, then we understand that there was a time at the turn of the century and even in the late 19th century where your family, your mother's family, were the trendsetters for any of the fashion cognoscenti at that point. And so they were always on the cutting edge of new things happening with saris. And for that, and with silk, the wonderful weaving. And with that in mind, you had an amazing customer base, which you still have today. So tell us a little bit about that.
My grandfather had a wonderful eye for fashion, fabric, quality. And so anytime we had a religious ceremony, a function, we're Indian, there's always a party for something. A lot of people would turn their heads to what the family members, what my grandma, my aunts, what they were wearing, because they would always have some of the newest fashion. And so some people have said, well, we would see what was in or, what was trending just by looking at what you guys were wearing.
Wow. So tell me, this is one of your customers, or was one of
Yeah,
your customers.
many years ago. We've had actors, actresses, heads of state, singers, queens come to the shop to buy saris at our establishment. Usually we would have to serve them outside of the business hours, so there was no paparazzi or fans, people gathering there that would disturb their shopping experience. So many times after midnight, family members have gone in, opened the shop up for them to come and be comfortable and buy whatever they need.
Wow. And you were telling me the story that that's happened even recently with one of the Bollywood stars. And
Yep.
yeah.
Right. Her mother lives in the same city as us. And so right before she got married to somebody in the States, early 2000s. And so before she came to the States, she came and shopped. My uncle had opened up the shop after midnight and she came in, did all of her shopping, and bought beautiful saris that were all one of a kind.
Wow, it's just amazing. So let's advance the slide and take a look at the next grouping. And so when you spoke of heads of state, we see Indira Gandhi. And then again, we see Gayatri Devi, who was a queen, the queen of Jaipur. And then we see a wonderful, amazing singer. I can't pronounce the name properly, but these are all the types of clients who frequented your shop. And at one time, I think you were telling me that you had 7 different shops around Pune.
Yes, many, many years ago. And little by little, they've been sold off. But at one point, there were 7 stores. Some did textiles, some did curtains. It was different aspects of fabric.
Right. And so what I read was that the Gujarati designers, the silk designers, were the most revered for their excellence. And so there, your grandfather coming to Pune as a Gujarati and bringing these examples, it's just been amazing that here, 4 generations later, this shop is still ongoing with this amazing depth in silk and silk weaving. So if we'll advance the slide, then tell us a little bit about what we're looking at.
These are 4 different types of saris. We have wedding saris, party saris. And so what the shop specializes in, as I'd said before, were pretty much high-end, one-of-a-kind pieces. This is not fast fashion. If you wore this for an engagement today, you could use one of these saris 10, 15 years from now. But just looking at how different each one is from the next, you can see the varieties that are offered.
Yeah, and so I said timeless as you were speaking, and that is that, something that is really a keepsake, an heirloom piece, and that is this wonderful, beautiful handmade silk woven piece. I can just imagine it being passed down even to the next generation.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, and I always describe it's like buying a Chanel jacket that you'll wear forever.
Yeah. So if we'll advance the slide, we'll take a look at some of the fabrics that and some of the just the beauty of the designs in the fabrics, and tell us a little bit about the gold being involved even in some of the designs that are made there, especially for the wedding saris.
They'll use gold and silver thread that are like 100% gold or silver threads that are incorporated into the fabric to give it sheen, texture, design. You can see by using gold how different each sari looks.
It's amazing.
Characteristics are different.
Just beautiful. Okay, so if we can advance the slide. So this goes back to something that you had said earlier, and that was about the different states in India, each of them with their own capitals, their own languages, and their own cultural stories. Being able to tell where the person is from or what part, whether it's north or south, based on the way the woman will wear the sari. So just explain what these are.
These are typical Gujarati saris. So the way they are worn is the fabric has come from behind and it comes over your right shoulder. That is how we wear our saris. So these are wedding saris. If you were to hold them, they would be incredibly heavy. And each one has hand embroidery done on the fabric after the saris are woven.
Wow,
So
that's
they'll hand bead, glass, mirror, they'll put different embellishments on to add to the beauty of the fabrics.
wow. So they're really works of art. They're one
They
of a kind of art. On your wedding day, I mean, this has to be special, special. And coming to your shop, I think it's Goggle by Hatibai.
Go by Hati Bai. Hati Bai, he was the fourth great grandfather, and
Right?
Guggleby was his son. So they named the shop after them, and they haven't changed the name. They're still honoring their name and their traditions to this 100 and some years later.
And still maintaining that reputation, for excellence. And that's exactly what we try to represent in the way that we do our products. But I mean, this is the highest, just like the highest example of handmade artwork. It's quite amazing. So let's take a look at your mom. Let's at an example of this. She's the daughter of this shop at this point. So of course she's got the highest example of a sari for her wedding. So let's take a look at that and tell us about this.
So in her sari, this is over 40 years ago. The picture on the left is her and my grandma, and the picture on the right is my mom and dad on their wedding day 40 years ago. And you can actually see that both my grandma and my mom had the best choice when it came to saris. And so she picked the nicest one at that time. And you can actually see the gold thread that is in there that has been woven into her sari. And we
Wow,
still have it.
that's amazing. I mean, it's just so beautiful. Just, makes you just feel like the handwork and the craftsmanship, just a high level of respect for that.
It's
So,
a
if we,
family heirloom.
yeah, really an heirloom. If we can advance the slide. So tell us a little bit about this.
So now, just by looking at the print, starting left to right with the green and pink sari, looking at that, that is a guy. I'm gonna say this wrong. Coimbatore. That's where that's the sari is from. The second one is called a Kanjivaram sari. You can tell from the print and the type of the way they've woven it. And then the third one again is the Coimbatore sari.
They're beautiful. Just the way they're wrapped, the way they're woven, will tell that. But the idea that your shop, your family's shop, caters to all the different types of saris from and 29 states, that's a lot. And everyone wanting a different type and then weaving and all that would make everyone happy. I mean, and to have that long, long history with silk, to be able to provide that, it's quite amazing. These are gorgeous. So if we can advance the slide and turn our attention, first of all, I'm going to ask if anyone has questions once I finish speaking with Mansi, if you can just enter them into the chat box. So, and we'll come back and we'll answer them. But taking a look now at the American connection, we've now looked at the historical connection with the silk and with the amazing silk shop located in Pune. And now Mariposa, this beautiful butterfly that we're looking at that has flown away to the US and now has set up shop and has been in business here for 12 years or more, selling this wonderful silk yarn. So tell us a little bit about your yarns. If we can
Um,
advance, pardon me, if we can advance the slide. Okay.
We offer four kinds of silk yarns. We have mulberry, which is a very creamy, buttery color. We have muga, which will be a golden color. In ancient times, only royalty wore muga. The more you wash it, the shinier it becomes and the stronger it becomes.
Wow.
Muga and Erie are both also known as peace silks. So some of our monks, I think Buddhist and Jain monks, that's our religion, Jainism, they will use either Muga or Erie because no living things are harmed in the process of procuring the yarn. And Erie is a little bit more white than the mulberry. And then we have Tusser. And Tusser is also going to kind of be that golden, creamy color.
Okay, so we're talking about the starting colors of the yarns before they're dyed. And you were telling me that the silk yarn takes dye very beautifully.
Yep, they're very, you can see, very vibrant and they don't fade. Even with washing them, with our yarns, they're machine washable. I don't put anything in the dryer, so just lay it flat to dry and usually dries overnight. But the dyeing process is fairly easy and the colors are very vibrant.
Okay, so if we can advance the slides. So we'll go through each of your offerings. The first is the mulberry silk, and just tell us about what you offer with that.
On mulberry, right now we have four lines. The first one is lace wing. It is a silk weight. It is a lace weight silk. It has 810 yards. Then we have Viceroy. That is our sport weight. And Monarch is our DK weight. They both have 410 yards, but depending on what needle size you knit or crochet them on, that's what determines gauge. So that's how we can tell between the Viceroy being sport and the Monarch being DK. Admiral is our worsted weight. It is a little bit thicker and heavier, and that's what this is knitted up in. And that's usually done on a 7, 8, or 9 needle size.
Okay, so just looking at the yardage is quite remarkable. And
Once
so,
skeins will do a small to medium garment.
wow. So I imagine that just there are many, like the capelet, that is a part of the Summer Design Challenge. It was a one skein product, unless you're making a much larger one, and then it would be like a 1.5 skein product. But just this amazing silk and this amazing yardage. It's just a great combination.
And
So
less ends to weave in, so it's
yeah,
less work at the end of knitting or crocheting something.
yes, and you get the best of both worlds, so that you get a lot of yardage and you get this amazing product. The next one.
And so the next line is the Muga silk, which I was saying in ancient times only royalty got to wear it just because it's a wild silk. They're wild butterflies. Zafara is our lace weight. It has 820 yards. There's a lot of yardage in that. Zareen is our fingering weight, and that has 547 yards. And Zephyr is the worsted weight. That has 274 yards. So this garment my mom had knit, that is ranunculus. We did a summer version in about 1.5 skeins of Zephyr silk yarn.
That's wonderful. The one thing that as I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that just getting a chance to work with something like a muga that is rare, to be able to see it in a yarn and to have a really good quality muga, it's just a joy. I've used your yarns, as you know, and it's just wonderful to see that and to know the history that this goes back to Assam and all that goes into understanding what this yarn line really represents. Okay, the next slide.
This is one of my favorites. We've introduced Erie yarn, and this is our sport weight. We have called it Adonis. You'll have 410 yards in one skein. And the sweater pattern we chose to feature was Cloudberry. It's by Fiber Tales. And that took 2 skeins. That's it.
Wow, that's amazing. I just love the idea of the name of Adonis. It has to be beautiful. We go back to Greek mythology.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a pretty, pretty yarn, which I have made and you'll see a little further on, a shawl in it, a shawl using the antique Shetland patterns, and it's just a wonderful knitting experience. So, okay, next.
We also offer silk roving. So for those who like to spin their own yarns, we have Muga, Tusser, Erie, Red Erie, Mulberry, and I'm trying to think, I think that's it. But we also have the pure natural fiber for people to spin with.
So let's advance the slide and take a look at that. Take a look at some of those that she named, and you see them in the roving.
You can see, even without it being spun into yarn, you can actually see how shiny the natural fibers are. Everything comes from a cocoon. And I think the stat was it takes 2,200 cocoons to make a men's silk shirt.
Wow, that says a lot. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work to procure the yarn off of the cocoons, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, the product is really amazing. So as we advance the slide, so you've been featured by some of the leading designers, my students included, and some of the major knitting magazines, Interweave Knits, as we see the photos here, as well as in Vogue Knitting. So tell us about those.
The first time we were incredibly honored to be featured in Interweave Spring 2013. And Joan Forgione, she had knitted up the Darjeeling shawl. I believe it was 2 skeins. That was the first time we were featured in Interweave. And then in the same year, the next season, Mari Tobita had designed the White Owl shawl. They both feature beautiful lace pattern. And both are, I believe, are done in Monarch.
Mulberry silk.
Mulberry silk.
They are both really beautiful. And let's take a look. Let's continue.
And so most recently, right before the pandemic hit, the winter edition of Vogue 2020, Laura Zucait had done the Nouveau pullover. I believe that was 3 skeins of Viceroy, which is the sport weight mulberry. And then you have designed this shawl, the O'Kelly Chapel shawl, spring of 2014. You had actually brought that down to Atlanta, and you had put it up in our window. And essentially you have knit this up in 2 pieces. And I believe you Kitchener the 2 pieces right up the center. And so to show the students taking your class, you had put it up in the window and we couldn't see the seam. It looks like it's just one piece knitted up.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I loved working with that. And a lot of people that year, and subsequent years as well, made this as a wedding shawl. I mean, right away, someone had written to me and said, "My daughter's getting married. I want to make this as a wedding shawl because it is really so perfect." And when you think of it as the piece yarn being used as well, it just brings such an amazing significance. And to put that kind of work into a project, to know that it is going to be an heirloom.
Absolutely. Our family, friends, and relatives, when they've had a wedding, many times we've had this shawl knitted up for them for their wedding.
Oh, that's great. Makes me happy. And looking at this, just looking at the Nouveau, just a beautiful, beautiful lace piece, Laura Zucate's piece, just wonderful. That was in that issue of Vogue Knitting.
Yep.
Okay, so we can continue with where you've been featured. My Duets book.
So the first pattern, I believe it's right on, as soon as you open up the cover, I think we have the Volaire capelet.
Now this is the coquille pullover, and that is the title page.
Yes, the coquille, sorry.
Yeah,
and so we have the pullover with the matching capelet, which was done in Monarch.
Yeah, both of them. And the capelet is what we're all about today, about this summer design challenge. Yeah.
And then the Volaire capelet was done in Viceroy. So I believe that's a 2 skein project.
Yeah. And that is the project that made me think of just wings based on the pattern, the stitch pattern. I'm always very much influenced by the stitch pattern and what I select to, put on my garment. And that reminded me of just wings, and nothing seemed to be able to fit as perfectly as this, the Volare with the Viceroy. We swatched up a number of different types of yarns, but it was so light and so airy, and the color was so beautiful.
Very
Just
vibrant.
yeah, and between it could be used between seasons, or it was just such a pretty piece. And we'll just go through my thoughts and the inspiration at the end when we show the video. But yeah, that was just an amazing product. And then what I wanted to show with the coquille pullover was to really showcase two different pattern stitches coming together. And the color, you may remember me asking to send more colors and testing more colors, but just this very light greenish kind of a color with that just worked perfectly, and that's why it became the title page garment. Yes, so if we take a look at the Volare and my thoughts, we'll see where we're going or where I went with it. So we get to see the beauty of the fabric there.
That's my
And
favorite.
yeah, I just love that, the whole, wings and that fabric. It all came together. It's always that form and function and fabric, all making a design what it is. A part of what
Very
everyone.
harmonious.
Yeah, everyone is in the middle of pulling that all together now for their summer design challenges. So thank you so much, Monsi, for taking this time, and I love what you're wearing. The color is very vibrant and beautiful. You
Thank
know,
you.
really showing off your silk product. And I loved hearing all about the history of your yarn line, and something that I don't know that many can boast. 142 years actually of a background in silk and silk weaving, and just the beauty of it all. So I'll ask Quinn, if there are any questions that have come in.
Shirley, I believe there are no questions.
Okay. Then we thank everyone for coming, and we hope that we will see all your design challenge capelets. I'm looking forward to it. We've got some coming in already, but we'd like to see them all by the end of August. And thank you again. Thank you again, Monsi.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
everybody.
me. It was an honor.
Thank you.